on to get voters to show up at the ballot box on Monday in Toronto's race to become mayor.
Now is not the time for Olivia Chow.
The gloves are off as the top contenders slam frontrunner Olivia Chow. Plus,
there is more love in this city. There is more love in this country. There is more love in this world than there is hate, and love will prevail.
it's Pride weekend in Toronto, a time to celebrate, but this year's event comes amidst a backdrop of increasing hate and backlash against the LGBTQ community.
It brings back that childhood. A lot of songs are hooked onto special memories.
The 90s and early 2000s making a big comeback. Nelly, Akon, Ja Rule, and more taking the stage in Toronto this weekend.
This is CBC Saturday News.
Thanks for joining us. The final push is on for candidates trying to get your vote on Monday in Toronto's race for mayor. But they're not only trying to get your vote. Some of them are trying to make sure people don't vote for leading candidate Olivia Chow. As Clara Pasica shows us, none of that matters if Get Out the Vote campaigns don't work.
After months of campaigning, candidates are making their final push to get people to vote for them on Monday, with more than a few references to who they shouldn't vote for.
This is not the time for someone driven by ideology, beholden to a political party, who won't be able to work with the other orders of government. Now is not the time for Olivia Chow.
And I say to Olivia Chow, the 1990s, that might have worked for you and your friends, but it's not working for the majority of the people in this city. I have put forward a fully costed and funded plan, one that is designed to fix the six.
People are telling me that how do we make sure Olivia Chow does not get into the seat? The fact that I will fund the police to make sure that our city is safe, Olivia is going to defund the police. The fact that she will be raising your taxes.
But frontrunner Olivia Chow isn't breaking a sweat, except for maybe on her bike ride this morning.
I'm back here where I grew up, in St. Jamestown, where having an affordable place to live make all the difference for me and my family. And I'm asking Torontonians to vote for me on Monday, so together we can build an affordable, caring, and safe city.
But those pleas to voters won't mean anything if Torontonians don't vote. That's why advocates and Black community leaders led an event at Jane and Finch.
We know that there is a low voter turnout in this community, and we want to find out why, because before you can actually address a cause, you have to find out what the reason is for that.
I'm going to vote. I'm going to tell my neighbors, my friends, my coworkers to go out to vote, even though they might feel that it's pointless. Their vote matters, and they are going to go out and vote. And today they'll learn about how to make an informed decision when it does come to voting.
This organization is one of many hoping to reach Torontonians in those final days. Election day is Monday, and polls are open from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Clara Pasica, CBC News, Toronto.
Okay, candidates for mayor were hitting the campaign trail. Pride events are in full swing across the city. You're looking live now at Toronto's Gay Village. It is Pride weekend. Tomorrow is the big day. The parade starts at 2. The party will go on all night. Today, though, was all about the Pride Run and Dyke March. Our Patrick Swadden spent the day in the village, where among the celebrations there is a very real sense of urgency when it comes to protecting the rights of the LGBTQ community around the world and here at home.
Pride hit the ground running this morning, bounding along Wellesley. Participants of the Pride and Remembrance Run saying it's about so much more than the $300,000 the event raised.
And our theme is called Remember Your Why. And so, in keeping with our title, Pride and Remembrance Run, we're remembering those who came before us.
Perez says in the 27 years the event has been run, queer rights have come a long way, but
we're seeing with our trans brothers and sisters, how their rights are under threat around the world, particularly south of the border.
Trans rights the focus of last night's Trans March, but this afternoon, the streets bustling with the Dyke March. celebrating lesbian communities across the world.
And I'm so happy to see thousands more lesbians and dykes right here on Church Street.
Lee Cam thrilled with today's celebration, but saying that lesbian rights are being threatened, even here in Canada.
And when you start affecting kids in schools, there's no safety anymore. So we have to create our own space and we have to make ourselves visible as much as we can.
And visible they were this afternoon, but some wishing there was more visibility for queer people in places like Iran and Uganda.
They're fighting and they're risking their lives because in Iran, like, being a queer is punishable by death.
And Sartori's message is clear: no freedom exists until freedom for everyone exists.
Our freedom must include every single Iranian, no matter their background, gender identity, or sexual orientation.
While others here in Toronto saying pride is strongest when all communities unite.
I would not be standing here today as a gay man without women, without black trans people who started the revolution!
And while the focus today was on women, the meaning of pride ringing clear for everyone who marched.
There is more love in this world than there is hate, and love will prevail.
Thousands out on the street around me bringing their energy for this Pride event, but the festivities do not end today. The Pride Parade kicks off from the corner of Church and Bloor Street tomorrow at 2 p.m. Patrick Swadden, CBC News, Toronto.
Sophia joining us now. Yes, the big day for Pride is tomorrow. Lots of people kind of nervous about the rain, but even today we had a rainfall warning and a weather advisory about funnel clouds at the same time.
Yeah, a lot going on. The name of the game this weekend, if you're heading out to any of the festivities, is a little bit of rain isn't going to hurt anybody. Go out and enjoy. But if you do hear the thunder or see the lightning, you want to come in quick. The also good news is that tomorrow's festivities should go off without a hitch weather-wise, but let's unpack what's going on today, because certainly a lot of rainfall warnings and, as you mentioned, funnel cloud advisories. Here's a bigger picture look of what's happening all across the province. As you can see, little pop-up, slow-moving storms is the name of the game. The atmosphere is just really hot and humid, as you know, and just ripe for this type of thunderstorm activity. It's not a big front coming in, but just these little pockets of humid air storms are making for really slow-moving storms, which is why if you were driving on any of the major highways, you'd see bright sunny skies, and then 30 seconds later, you'd be into a wall of rain, pouring rain, which is why we're seeing some localized flooding. Rainfall warning in effect for that. But that non-severe storm threat also could include the odd funnel cloud or land spout tornado. Okay, it's not a tornado, looks kind of scary if you do see one, but they are non-severe, not dangerous, really just a funnel-shaped cloud that forms from one of those quick rotating storms that are popping up all across the province. So a chance you could see one, chance it could turn into a landspout tornado, but very much non-severe in nature. The humidity continues right until tomorrow. The storm threat clears into the overnight period. It's really winding down right now. And for Sunday afternoon, mostly sun and cloud. I'm knocking on wood as I say that. But also that small storm threat is still there, especially north and west of the city. Guelph, Dundalk Highlands tomorrow that could see some more of those pop-up storms, and then into southwestern Ontario. So London, Kitchener, even Sarnia, that could see more of a storm line. But for those of you enjoying Pride festivities, enjoy the mostly clear weather and that light storm risk with a pop-up storm that still could come in. We'll talk about air quality, though, in the long range. It's poor in parts of the province.
Okay, everyone's knocking on wood. Thanks, Sophia.
You're welcome.
If you tried to get gas today, you may have noticed Petro-Canada is facing an outage that's impacting its online platforms. It started yesterday. Dozens of customers on social media complaining they can't log into the app or website. Others also complaining the credit card system is down. So far, the company has not released a public statement or addressed the tweets online. In other news tonight, the search intensifies for answers about what exactly went wrong on board that doomed submersible in the North Atlantic. Canada's Transportation Safety Board says it's now gathering data from the Polar Prince. The Titan's Canadian mothership docked in St. John's earlier today. The Ocean Gate sub imploded, killing all 5 people on board it. happened in a very complicated ocean area where no government has jurisdiction. The RCMP is also conducting a separate investigation. Big news out of Russia today that could have global consequences. An armed mutiny in that country appears to be over less than 24 hours after it began. The leader of a paramilitary group has agreed to call off his troops. Briar Stewart is tracking the latest for us from London.
The roadblocks were up and police appeared to be manning machine gun positions on the outskirts of Moscow. But late today, an apparent and abrupt about-face. Wagner leader Yevgeny Prigozhin announced his men were turning around and going back to base camp in order to avoid bloodshed. He said the sudden reversal came after negotiations with Belarusian leader Alexander Lukashenko, who's considered to be a political puppet of Vladimir Putin, who many believe is now much more vulnerable.
I don't see how Putin survives this, because Putin would be so weakened by having to make an agreement with a guy who basically openly challenged him.
Over the past day, there's been a series of dramatic developments which led some to believe Russia could be on the verge of a coup or even a civil war. Still others believed it would all sort itself out. I think some sort of negotiations will take place, said this man. Our authorities will take all necessary actions. Early this morning, Wagner fighters appeared to easily sweep into the southern city of Rostov-on-Don, about 100 kilometers from Ukraine. Prigozhin published video of him talking to senior military officials, demanding that the Ministry of Defense and another top general be handed over because of their corruption and incompetence. Russia accused him of mutiny. What we're facing now is treason. Unreasonable ambitions and personal interests lead to treachery, said President Putin. The Kremlin says criminal charges against Prigozhin have been dropped and he will go to Belarus. As for the Wagner fighters, if they participated in the march, officials say they won't face prosecution and the rest will sign contracts with the Ministry of Defense. Briar Stewart, CBC News, London.
So who exactly is this man leading the paramilitary group and what are his motivations? With that part of the story, here's Mike Crawley.
When Yevgeny Prigozhin wants recruits for his Wagner group of private mercenaries, he often looks to hardened criminals in Russian prisons. Prigozhin spent a decade in prison himself toward the end of the Soviet Union.
He's entrepreneurial, he's a survivor, he's got a lot of chutzpah.
Free in St. Petersburg in the newly capitalist Russia, Prigozhin goes from owning hot dog stands to running fancy restaurants, frequently hosting the city's then mayor, Vladimir Putin.
During Putin's control over the city, a lot of ex-convicts, including Prigozhin, did very well.
Prigozhin earns the nickname Putin's chef. At this Kremlin dinner for George W. Bush in 2006, there he is pouring wine for the U.S. president. He becomes rich through lucrative catering contracts from the Russian state.
One of the many jokes that are going around at the moment is don't put your caterer in charge of an armed force that can threaten your own power. It's a lesson for dictators everywhere.
Prigozhin branches out to running internet troll farms from this building in St. Petersburg, prompting a U.S. indictment for allegedly interfering in the 2016 presidential election.
The Wagner group, which Prigozhin set up, was really a spin-off from these other activities.
He's made a huge fortune through his relationships with Putin and running this mercenary army.
Prigozhin has taken credit for some of Russia's military successes in Ukraine and has grown bolder in speaking out about Russian generals' failures and their tactics.
Prigozhin has been extremely disheartened and publicly critical of the military's leadership of this war.
That criticism peaked with his forces launching armed rebellion in Russia, only to call it off within hours. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
Come Tuesday, Toronto will have a new mayor. Many are seeing this election as an opportunity for change, a moment to pause and think about what kind of city do we really want. To talk more about that, I met up with a member of Toronto's youth cabinet. Can you just bring us up to speed on what are some of the biggest issues facing Toronto's young people right now?
There's a number of things that are on the minds of Toronto youth across the city.
Housing affordability is a big thing. A lot of young people, especially those that are just entering the workforce, wanting to buy their first homes, aren't able to do so because of the way the current economy is and the prices that are going up at the moment. And speaking of jobs, being able to access employment, meaningful employment, employment that helps them pursue the careers that they want to pursue, those are opportunities and topics that are top of mind, as well as community safety, taking the TTC, what transit is like, the pricing for that, as well as whether or not it's safe. That is something that is top of mind for young people, especially as we see a lot of instances of violence happening across the city, not bound to any one neighborhood or community. Those are some of the key topics that we've been thinking about over the past few months and that we've been thinking about in this mayoral election.
As you've been listening to the campaign, what's your sense of what you're hearing when it comes to candidates and what they're promising for young people?
So far in this election, there's been a lot of general statements about what we're trying to do, what the candidates would like to do as mayor. But overall, what we're really seeing and what we've been lacking in this election so far is really specific policies about what are these candidates going to do for young people, how are they going to invest in these communities, and how are they going to make sure that Toronto becomes a place where young talent can thrive and young people can access those opportunities. So even though all these topics are relevant and they apply to everyone across the city, and it's something that a lot of people are passionate about, there has to be a conversation that is also youth specific, because these young people are going to become the next leaders. They're going to become the next adults that are running the city, and they deserve the opportunity to become the most that they can be.
Yeah, and I know that the Toronto Youth Cabinet sent out a survey to some of the mayoral candidates. How did that go?
So we did hear back from some of the candidates. Not all of them have responded, but we did hear back and some positive responses to some of the questions that we asked them. One of our big things in this election is to really get that commitment from all the candidates that they're going to focus on young people and make that a priority in the work that they do in their time at City Hall.
Yeah, and that's why your organization is already doing that work now to build the relationships with the survey. When it comes to getting people to vote, getting them there on the day that counts, tell us some of the work that your group is doing to make sure that young people show up on election day.
A lot of it is getting the word out there, because we see now that young people, they are civically engaged. They want to be civically engaged. And it's really about having those conversations and sharing the message that this is the prime time to really bring in a mayor that cares about the issues that we care about and that is going to act on the things that we want them to act on. So getting out there, hitting the ballots, making sure that your voice is heard, and sharing with your friends and your family that this is that key election. Go out there and vote. If you haven't registered to vote, register, get your ballot, go to whatever voting location is nearby and cast that ballot.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate you taking the time to come down and speak with us.
Thank you for having us.
Drake is making headlines today, literally. If you saw The Star today, you know he's set to launch his first book of poetry. It's now available on his merch website. It's called Titles Ruin Everything, a Stream of Consciousness by Kenzir Zamir and Aubrey Graham, aka Drake. The duo worked together on hits like Take Care, and if you're reading this, it's too late. Drake also announced a new album for all the dogs. No details yet on release dates. Well, some of the 90s and early 2000s best artists are in town this weekend. It's for the Hot in Her Festival. If you're of a certain age, you know what that means. It's headlined by Nelly, who sang that 2002 hit song. We caught up with some of the performers.
I just think hip-hop is getting older. It's the 50 years of hip-hop, and so like any other genre of music, as it grows, as it gets older, you know, so will the audiences, and now we'll have more nostalgic events and you know, you have radio stations that'll be, you know, catered to more, you know, older styles, older school music.
We never left, so it's really not really a comeback, it's just a reintroduction.
Nelly, Neo, Akon, Carrie Hilson, Rick Ross, and Ja Rule are just some of the names you can find at the Music Fest. Those are the artists fans are excited for.
I'm really excited to see everyone in person.
Yes, since I was a kid, I really like R&B and hip-hop music, so we're very excited of this.
Like this whole living in the moment, all the lineup, it's like, it's all the throwbacks, and it's like, you know, it feels good.
If you don't have tickets now but want to go, the concert is on at Downsview Park until 11 tonight. Akon, Neo, and Nelly are all yet to hit the stage. I feel old.
I caught all your musical references. I was right there with you. I caught everything you put down.
It's funny. It's the music you used to dance to, you know, clean the house to, right?
Yep. And it feels like it was only a few years ago. Let's not talk about how long it really was, okay? I
Oh,
still feel
boy.
like the year 2000 was just 5 years ago.
That's true, but
Not
no.
just me, hopefully.
No.
Well, we'll be dancing on the streets come Sunday afternoon, and I think I can lightly promise a bit of a dry air feeling for that dancing. There is this storm risk to talk about, and also, did you see that humidity? Feeling like 33 while you're out in the streets of downtown Toronto. Non-severe storm risk everywhere, but that doesn't mean that everybody is going to see a storm. What you will have, though, is this hot, soupy air mass feeling like the mid-30s, folks, right across the board. And of course, that's the atmosphere ripe for the type of storms that we saw today. But this is one model's version of the events. And look, dry right until Sunday evening, when we could see a few pop-up storms northwest of the city, and this squall line that could come in from Michigan for some bigger, bustier storms for those of you in parts of southwestern Ontario. Nothing like what we saw today, though. Here are some of those really slow-moving, heavy downpour storms clearing out of communities like Milton and Burlington and Bolton and Newmarket right now as we speak. And in fact, it's storming everywhere, but not in the areas where we need it with all the fires, which we'll talk about in a minute. Still some really poor air quality in communities like Sudbury and North Bay and Petawawa and Ottawa. Let's talk about the humidity for a minute this evening. That soupy air mass continues right until Monday. And in fact, for the first half of your work week, unsettled days feels like in or approaching the 30s, and really warm overnight lows as well. It's not until the end of the week that I can say we will have a little bit of sunshine back in the picture. It's because of this hot, soupy air mass that will really be flowing in for the first half of this week, along with that wildfire smoke. Quick shout out to communities like Ottawa and Sudbury that have really poor air quality, Shannon, for the next 24 to 36 hours.
Wow, it's back. I was going to say the word of the show is soupy.
Soupy, yeah. How many times did I say it? Let's play a game.
I think three.
Okay, maybe more.
But it feels soupy out there.
Yeah, my hair feels it as well.
Thanks, Sophia.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Before we go, we want to take you to Etobicoke, where a road hockey tournament is underway, hosted by a national superstar.
Started in 2018. It was just a simple road hockey game that me and my family were playing outside, and it's blown up into a charity tournament that gives kids the opportunity to play hockey or play sports in their community.